Believe it or not, this is a huge blow to the woke ideology, and I believe it's done intentionally rather than unintentionally. A lot of the ideology, especially the gender ideology, is almost entirely influenced by the English language. This is why when it's applied to Latinx, it doesn't really make any sense. The whole purpose of Latinx is to remove gender from the language. However, because Latin languages are gendered, like every single word in a Latin language has a gender. The table has a gender, the cock has a gender, the light bulb has a gender, like everything has a gender. Because of that, the word Latinx seems so foreign and distant. Now, as a Romanian, I can tell you that when you have these woke influences coming from the West, all of them are in the English language. Or they try to bastardize the Romanian language, but it sounds so bad. Like, for example, identitate de gen. It's just like, it doesn't make sense in Romanian. It sounds weird. Or patriarhatul, right? Because they're talking about the patriarchy, but there is no such equivalent in direct speak Romanian that would make sense. So they have to use these bastardized words that are English in nature. And by banning them, right, by the Italian government banning them, it's going to make it very hard for woke ideologues to be able to pass these things into legislation. It's not impossible, but again, like the whole purpose of the left-leaning identitarian movement is to corrupt language. And because most of these ideologies are built into the United States and then they're being imported, especially in places like Eastern Europe or Southern Europe, this is a really good way in order to prevent it from happening. Like the way I know that this is the case is when you have people coming up and saying it's like, oh my god, like Trump building a border, Trump building a wall. Oh, it's so horrible, it's fascist. And I'm like, dude, you're in Romania. We already have a border wall with our neighboring nations. What the fuck are you talking about? Right? So it like the people are using American ideology and they're reporting it into other countries where it doesn't make sense. It's the same like having a Black Lives Matter movement in Bulgaria. It's like, dude, like Bulgarian cops do not even shoot black people. Like there's no black people there. That's a significant chunk of the population to even have these issues, right? But they're importing them from the United States. They're importing them over here. And by having legislation like this is going to make it very difficult for left-leaning people to express what they want. Now, another strong argument is why should there be English words in Italian public records? Like, do you have Japanese words in the English public records in America or United Kingdom or Australia, right? Like, it is understandable if a country goes like, no, like the official language of this particular nation is this language, and in the official court records, there's only going to be this. Now, in some situations where you have like a significant minority in your country, like for example in Canada, you may have like the French Canadians, then it's different because you can say, well, okay, but like French is also an official language, so all official documents have to be in English and French. But that's it, right? Like they don't get to be in Chinese, they don't get to be in Japanese, like no. Now, apparently people are very upset. Italian use of English and other foreign words in official communications could face fines up to 100,000 euros. Under new legislation introduced by the Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. I love diversity. The first ever female Prime Minister. We're breaking the glass ceiling. I love it. Italians, muy bello. While the legislation that encompasses all foreign languages is particularly geared at Anglomania, or use of English words, which the draft states demeans and mortifies. Demeans and mortifies the Italian language. Other than it is even worse because the UK is no longer part of the European Union. The bill, which has yet to go up to parliamentary debate, requires anyone who holds an office in public administration to have written and oral knowledge and mastery of the Italian language. It also prohibits the use of English in official documentation, including acronyms and names of job roles in companies operating in the country. Foreign entities would have to have Italian language editions of all internal regulations and employment contracts according to a draft of the legislation seen by CNN. It is not just a matter of fashion as fashion pass, but Anglomania has repercussions for society as a whole. Yes, it does. The first article of the legislation guarantees that even in the offices that deal with non-Italian speaking foreigners, Italian must be the primary language used. Article 2 would make Italian mandatory for the promotion and use of public goods and services in the nation's territory. Not doing so could give you a fine between 5,000 to 100,000 pounds. Under the proposed law, the Culture Ministry would establish a committee whose remit would include correct use of the Italian language and its pronunciation in schools, media, commerce, and advertising. This would mean that saying bruschetta instead of bruschetta could be a punishable offense. The move of safeguarding the Italian language joins an existing bid by governments to protect the country's cuisine. It has introduced legislation to ban so-called synthetic or cell-based cuisine due to their lack of scientific studies on the effect of synthetic food, to safeguard our nation's heritage, our agricultural base, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is a good thing, right? Like, the government of Italy represents the interests of Italians. I know, horrible. Oh my God, how can they? Shocking. No, they should. They should represent the interest of the United Nations, of the European Union, of, like, how can you represent the interest of Italians? Right? Like, the Italians, they use their own taxpayer to fund the government, which should represent the interests of other people, not that of Italians, because that's bigoted. It's kind of like, imagine the horror if a corporation would represent the interests of its shareholders. No, they need to represent the interests of the stakeholders. Right? I mean, not the people who fund the corporation, who pay for it. No. No. That's bigot. Horrible. Atrocious. But yeah, so I do genuinely think that it's to combat the woke ideology. I genuinely think this because I do talk with some people behind the scenes, and they don't present it as such because that would lead to a larger controversy than it already leads to. So they're like, oh yeah, well, the food, the blah blah blah. Again, good luck pushing Latinx now. Because Latinx, imagine if Mexico would pass a similar law, right? The word Latinx would not be able to be used. Because it's not a Mexican, right? It's not a Spanish word. What is Latinx? You could use it though. Like you would have to first get a significant amount of the population to use a word until it actually goes into the dictionary, and then you can use it. But it will take a lot of time. A lot of effort. And you like the worst thing is that most of this woke ideology, it doesn't go democratically. Like it's not grassroots, it's top down, right? So like you have people in the academia deciding how you should speak, and then people speak it. Like in the case of Latinx, right? It's not that the Latin demographic all of a sudden said, oh well, let's rebrand ourselves as Latinx. No, this is how you should be called, and the Latin population gave the middle fingers, and now it's Latin or something. Latine, yes, Latine is now. Okay. Because they notice, it's like, holy shit, like this is so unpopular, we have to change it. But this legislation, again, would prevent nonsense like this, and I just don't see how you can teach gender language in Romania if English words were banned. Like, it's impossible. You just can't do it. Like, you would... Like, the Romanian language is not equipped with dealing with some of the presumptions and some of the concepts. Like, you would need to recreate the entire thing just to fit the Romanian language. And when you do that, it doesn't fit other languages, right? So it would be a lot more expensive, like you a lot more time consuming. You'd have to recruit smart people to do it. I mean, the woke having smart people, they used to, but now not anymore. So... believe it or not, this is going to be very damaging for identity politicians. Even like no, I think like some words like racist and sexist exist, misogynist exists, but the concept, like, there are languages where the concept of gender does not exist. Like they use sex. Right? Like, imagine trying to push gender ideology in a language where they don't even have the concept of gender. The only way you can do it is by using the word gender and importing it from the English language into that language. Right? So, if you had a law that says, no, you can't do that because that's an English term, we don't have this in our lexicon, well, you'd have to first convince all the people to use it. Good luck with that. And then it has to go into a dictionary. That usually takes a couple of years. And then you can do it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.